Vote the bad PPP. Vote GPP. Vote the G.
Thank you for joining me once again on this live calling program. I'm Peter Ramsaroop, presidential candidate for the Guyana People's Partnership. We love to discuss the future of our nation, how all of us working together can make a difference to our nation. How do we do things better? How do we commit ourselves to a sense of pride, a commitment to our country, patriotism? How do we sing the national anthem and have hope for our nation, that we're one nation of one people? We may be many people in different cultures, in different religions, different textures of our hair, but the fact that we all believe in our country, we all want a better life for our nation, we want a better life for our children. Children are not just our future, but they are today. And if we're not working on them today, we will not be doing any good service to our nation without putting our children and our young people at the limelight of anything we do. And as we study our nation politics, as we look at this election year coming up, you have looked at all the candidates that are vying for political power. Political power needs to be a commitment to the nation, a servant to society that says any one of us that sits in that chair as president is president for all of our nation, of all our people, for all parts of our country, not for one race, not for one section, but a country that is recognized around the world. We have been known as this begging country. We have lost touch of our pride as we travel around the country and around the world. People have lost touch in Guyana. The despair, the lack of hope is around the world. You know, the president went to New York the other day, and we probably should have a New York arrival day because, you know, our population, half of our population lives outside of Guyana, and a lot of them have left under this administration. But how do we make our nation a better place for all of us? That's what I want to discuss with you today. A country that brings back hope, a country that is modernized, where our people can have jobs, not just $40,000 jobs and $30,000 jobs, but jobs that will be valuable, that be able to go from 50,000 to 100,000 to 150,000. You should be able to buy a car. You should be able to build a nicer house. You should be able to send your children to university. You should be able to travel and see the world, see Guyana, beautiful places. That's what our dream, that's what our Guyanese dream about, is the vision of hope, vision that says that we should not be poor anymore. We should not let the politicians, the establishment that have stifled our country for the last 50 years, they should not be allowed to do that anymore to us. We've got to step in, all of us working together to make that difference in our country. And as you sit in your living room today and wherever you will hear this program, I want you to look around your living rooms. Is that the life you want for your children? How many of you can afford cable television? How many of you can afford computers in your home, internet service, a car? You can go from a bicycle to a motorcycle to a car. How much you can look forward to a bigger and better home for when your family is expanded? How many of you have extra money in your pocket so you can take your children out for ice cream and for dinner at the Pizza Hut? It is not that we ought to allow ourselves to stay in this poverty. The country has natural resources. It's not about potential anymore, but opportunities. How do we turn Guyana into an economy that is driven, an energy-driven economy, and how do we turn our nation into an economic nation that better all of us, that improves our jobs, improves our lives, our standards of living? I was in Maruka this week, and Kamwater and Mora in Region 1, and, you know, I saw the government building a $100 million airport in Maruka when the residents do not have simple things, running water, sustainable energy. These are things you would expect the people of Maruka in Region 1 and Mora and Kamwater to have. They need much more than an airport. An airport is for government officials to fly in so they don't need to take the boat and travel like I did to meet some of these residents. They want a better life for their family. They want a life that they can develop themselves. You know, for children, I met some brilliant and beautiful young people in Region 1. And you know what? The most frustrating part, when I look at how brilliant they were and realize they will not have a chance and afford a chance to come to Georgetown to go to university. We are not even looking at university level in the Essequibo region, where these young people sitting on these steps talking about they want to be a doctor, they want to be a lawyer. Why can't we have those opportunities around our nation? As I take a break, I want us to think through our future of our country. How could you get involved this year? It's time we take our country forward. It's taking it back in order to take it forward. It's you and me working together, telling the establishment, the politicians, the parliamentarians that have failed our country, where is the economic plan that will make us better? Why do we have to complain every day that VAT is at 16%? Gasoline taxes is at 30%, 20% right now in a temporary reduction. Minibus fares, boat fares around our nation is going up, whilst the residents of Rockstone and Bartica and Sharon in Maruka, and those David in quarantine that I've spoke to, want a better life for all of us, a better life for our children. So as we take a break, I want you to answer that question. How would you make our country better? And what are you willing to do to take our country to the next level, a nation that we're proud of around the world, that when folks see a Guyanese passport and this Guyana flag that all of us should start wearing, they will know that we are a nation of great people and we are ready to take our country forward. I'll be right back.
Don't vote the bad PPP, vote GPP. Vote the G.
Hope for our nation. Peter R. Ramsaroop, MBA. Listen to what he has to say through lyrics and music. Sing it, CD.
There is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
Implement our national anthem. One land of six peoples, united and free. Recommit to our Guyanese patriotism. Develop a blueprint for operating in a multi-ethnic society. Our children are our future. Therefore, we must upgrade our battered educational system. We must give our youth an education that is career-oriented, nationalistic, and moral.
There is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
We must build on the unique strengths of the people and the country. Creativity, cultural diversity, natural beauty, and strategic location to expand the economy into service and knowledge-based activity. Optimize competitiveness of goods and commodity producing sectors. employ sound financial management to reduce taxes and increase revenues from exports.
There is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
Develop roads, schools, power and light, and hospitals. Measure implementation and enforce strict accountability for projects, including environmental protection. Consider a light rail system between major cities. Establish a new public housing program. Develop a modern international airport to serve as a hub to the Caribbean and South America. Move to a coordinated, dynamic vision of our future infrastructure, in which all of Guyana's regions are brought together.
There is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
Implement Guyana 21. Encourage competitive industries to build on our strengths of geography, agricultural produce and climate. Develop food processing plants. Expand exportation of livestock, fruits and other non-traditional crops. Reduce prices in Guyana. Improve the economic framework. Develop a positive business climate and reduce regulatory impediments.
There is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
Help our farmers to develop export markets, attract manufacturing facilities, transportation and energy investments. Reforming government will enhance individual liberty and allow the other 11 proposals to be more effective. Encourage the involvement of the people in all aspects of society. Government must provide effective, visionary and inclusive leadership to ensure the elimination of racism. Downsize government and bureaucracies in order to encourage entrepreneurship and develop a free, robust private sector.
Hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction. I tell you, there is hope for our nation, yeah, yeah, to save us from destruction.
Thank you again for staying with me to discuss the future of our country, how all of us, I asked you before the break, how will you get involved to make our nation a better place? As you look at your young children tonight, when they come home from school, and you look in their eyes, you've got to give them that hope, that vision, that you believe in our country, so that they can also believe that, we don't have to look forward to leaving Guyana for a better life. I believe we can do it right here. That's why we believe the vision of our nation ought to be to become a transport-led economy, an energy-driven economy. Guyana is a land of many waters. We have the ability, we have seen the hydro plant that the government has talked about. I believe we should halt that. Why I say that? We ought to be looking at energy that can be solved today. Solar power, wind power. Dr. Luncheon said yesterday that he plans to rent more generators. This is not about renting generators. It's how do we resolve the energy solutions. What are those solutions today? Look at the wind power. Instead of laptops, we should be putting solar panels on every houses. We have more wind in Wakenham and Legowan than any other part of the country. Let's fund those programs. Let's develop the road to Brazil in order for us to create those new economies. As you look at our blueprint that I have here, I believe that one of the things that we've got to spend time on is finishing that road to Brazil. That 300-mile road, I've mentioned many times, that one road, paving that one road to Brazil would get 4,000 trucks a week coming through our country, taking goods in and out to a deep water harbor that we have proposed to build. And that's why I said Guyana needs to be a transport-led economy, where we utilize our waters, we utilize our land to make money. And when we make money, we're making money for all of us, not for a few. And as you look at the plan in terms of the blueprint, this is our blueprint for Guyana, we show we have to build a deep water harbor at the mouth of the Essequibo, where the large ships can come in for both ecotourism, cruise ships to the shipping. As you now build the road all the way to Brazil, what would you have on that road? Many different hotels, mechanic shops, jobs will be created, new villages will come up. We also believe in expanding the Georgetown. Georgetown should be just become an historical district as we look at how we connect Bartica, Parika, Lethem, Linden. That becomes our new vision of a larger capital city that connects to these areas, which, for example, the Bartica Triangle, we'd be looking at the smaller hydro plants for those small waterfalls. We look at the Kokwani area, Linden will become a booming manufacturing town. Region 10 become a manufacturing town where furniture, other bricks, for example, used to happen there. We look at how we bridge some of the connection between some of the islands. And as we look at that, we look at the sugar industry. You know, as Dr. Taran Kamraj, an economist, a good friend of mine, he said, as you get richer, you don't eat more sugar, but you use more fuel. What are we complaining about today? Fuel costs. Taxi drivers are increasing their fares. Boat operators are increasing their fares because of the high fuel costs. We have recommended 5 years ago that we turn the sugar industry and the waste into ethanol. Ethanol can be blended with gasoline and reduce the price of our consumption of fuel. If we had looked at the wind and hydro or wind and solar power 5 years ago, we wouldn't be struggling today with our electric bills that are so high. Those are the things that will change Guyana. Not building an airport for $100 million in Maruca. Right now, where the residents, as I said, don't even have running water or electricity for any sustainable period of time. They can't get into manufacturing. The mangoes, the cashews are all falling on the ground. They could be making jam. They could be exporting it if we become that transport-led economy that I've talked about. But as you look at our blueprint, the fact is from Region 1 to Region 5 to Region 6. Region 5, for example, all the roads need to be all-weather roads. You need to be able to turn the rice industry, not just in producing rice to export to Venezuela. That's a good commodity, but you've got to figure out what are the value-added products. The value-added products is things like rice cereal. You pay a lot of money for a little bar of rice cereal. Turn it into value-added products. You know what value-added products bring? Money and wealth to a nation. And guess all of us in this nation will have a chance to enjoy that wealth. The oil industry, we know will happen in Guyana in the next 5 to 10 years. We've got to look at how do we develop the oil industry for the betterment of our country. We've got to stop selling our country out for cheap dollars. Selling our country out for $30 million a year to Norway, not to cut our trees down, when we are taking away the small mining concessions from our local people, giving it to larger companies that takes our gold out of our nation. Yes, that comes back into our GDP. It helps our country to get money, but we've got to use that money wisely. You look at the transport economics. You know, what sparks our growth? What are the things that will spark our growth? It's the agriculture goods, turning into agro-processing. It is that deep water harbor I talked about. It's turning Lethem into an enterprise zone. It is looking at, you know, the other expansions in terms of I said, connecting the cities, that where everybody don't have to live in Georgetown and the coastal plains anymore, is we moving them out to tie with Bartica, Lethem, Parika. Those are the areas that will be what our focus will be in developing this new country. Georgetown can't be developed anymore. You know, when you see government taking reserve land and building houses for themselves, or even giving out house lots and reserve land. You know, when the Dutch made those lands reserve, it was meant for reserves. Do not build on them. They're for water reserves. They're for many other aspects. We should be looking at moving our population off the coastal plains into areas, as I mentioned. You know, if you build a new city starting from Temeri all the way to Linden, you, as I mentioned, connect that Bartica and that Parika component, as I have here on the blueprint. You know, this now becomes a major new city where all of us could be living on water. You know, the angles of water, for example, through the creeks in the Temeri, Linden, Sioux Lake Highway, those becomes channels where I can own a boat potentially. I can have a better life. I can build a nice house on the water. I don't have to live in these congested areas that is flooded every day in the coastal plains. That's our vision. It's a lot more detail in our plan, what we want to do for our country. How do you, working together, can make this happen? There are some fundamental foundation principles that needs to take place. I have them here also on the blueprint, and I hope you can get a copy of the blueprint very soon. The fundamental principles of that becomes where we've got to reduce taxes from 16% to 8 to 10% immediately in 2011. What that does, it brings more money in your pocket. Secondly, you've got to increase the tax threshold from 35, 40,000 to 75,000. So if you're making less than 75,000, you pay no taxes. That again puts more money in your pocket. What are you going to do with that money? You're going to spend it. We believe in cutting profit tax to 25%. You know, the presidential candidates have been invited to meet with the private sector. They refuse to invite me as a presidential candidate to meet with them, but not one of them talking about reducing the corporate tax. You know, why foreign investors are not in our country is because our corporate tax is at 25%. It needs at 40%. It needs to be 25%. With 25%, it brings new investment, new foreign direct investment, and foreign direct investment will create new industries in our country. We've got to solve crime and security. Those are things that have to happen for the private sector to take control of our society. I mentioned we've got to stop the Amalia Falls project, put the money back into the hands of the smaller falls, into solar power, into hydro, smaller hydro plants, into wind power. We've got to increase the social sector of our society where our senior citizens gets at least minimum 10, 15,000 a month in their pension. They can't live on even that. How are we going to treat those that have worked hard for our nation in the years that they had to struggle? Progress doesn't mean going from a $28,000 salary to $35,000. Progress means going from a $40,000 salary to a $200,000 salary, where you can be able to make that difference in the lives of your family, in the lives of all of us, for a better country. You know, teachers, for example, are the foundation of our nation. You know, when you give a teacher a 5% increase in salary, and very bad that the union would even agree to that. I was in the Pomeroon River on Wednesday, and I stopped into a school on the Pomeroon River. And you know, one teacher there that is struggling with all those the travels to get to school, she said, well, Mr. Ramsaroop, what would $1,200 more do to me a month? I can't even pay the new cost for the boat transportation to teach our children. Who is spending more time with your children in a day basis, 8 hours, 7, 8 hours a day, is those teachers. You know, those wives sitting at home today, you know what it's like to take care of those children. You know, I have my children a lot of times during the day, and I know what it's like to get up and make breakfast and for lunch and keep them occupied all day long, make sure that they're learning and happy for what they need to do. Imagine those teachers are doing that day in, day out, and we give them the most measly salary that you can have in our country. Why the parliamentarians drive around in fancy vehicles, duty-free cars, they get all of the benefits. Government ministers get house lots, they build big houses, and your children, whose second parents are those teachers, are discarded. That is not what we want for our country. We want a better life for those teachers, for our public servants, for sugar workers. I said we've got to turn our sugar industry into ethanol, create energy so that we don't have all these blackouts. We can reduce our fuel costs. With that, what does that do to us? It brings more money in our pocket. What would you like to do this weekend if we had dropped the tax from 16% to 8% and the tax threshold to $75,000? You would have an instant pay raise of almost $13,000 if you were making over $60,000 a month. You know, what would you do with that? I'm sure you would take your children out for some ice cream. For those that have never been able to go to Mario Pizza or Pizza Hut, You know, there's so many families today that can't even afford those basic things that some of us have been able to do. I want you to think through. If you're better off in your home and you're satisfied with where you are and you've earned your way, I'm glad you have. If you're not, I'm asking you, let's work together to take this country forward. Let's let our politicians know that this is not their country. It is not transported to them. It is ours. It's for our land. You shouldn't have to pay $500,000, $300,000, $1 million for a plot of land that the government said is free land. Again, it's our land. It is our country. I want you to look in each other's eyes, my eyes and your eyes, and I want you to think through the fact, are we better off today than we were 5 years ago? Yes, you may have big buildings going up. You know, a one-store owner, I've mentioned this before, you know, I went into the store, he says, look, you know, great things happening. I've got a 4 or 5 story building now on Regent Street. And as I walked out of that store, I asked the receptionist who's been working there 5 years, or the store worker, I said, what did you make 5 years ago? She said, 28,000. I asked her, well, what did you make today? She said, 28,000. And I said, where did you live? And Doreen was her name. You know what Doreen said? I live all the way in Parika. By the time I travel to Georgetown for this $28,000 job, by the time I finish at the end of the week, I barely have enough money maybe to buy 2 or 3 meals of groceries for that week. That is not what we want. We want a nation of wealth. You know, we talk about the gold in our country. We talk about our natural resources. We talk about developing our land, building that road to Brazil, looking at a deep water harbor, looking at solving our energy solution, not 5, 10 years from now, but today. Let's use the money we have today to make things happen for us today, not for tomorrow. As I close this program, all I ask you to think through this year, election year, what is your Guyanese dream? What is it you want in life? You know, as I ask that question, as I travel to Maruka this week and other weeks to Rockstone and Quarantine, you know, from Derek to David to Doreen to Sandra, you know, what they told me is all we want is a better life for our family. From single mothers to families of 4, to young people going to university, the same answer, they want a better life. And to get a better life, we've got to put the fundamentals in place. Reduction in taxes, creation of new industries, solving our energy problem, and believing in our country. Believing in this flag that says, you and I are citizens of Guyana. We're many people, but with one destiny. Our national anthem and our pledge talk about love one another. We've got to believe in unity, and we got to believe no one owns this country. All of us must work together for a better nation. Kiss your children for me today. Look in their eyes, and even if you don't have any, look for someone's child. And remember, they're not our future, but they are our today. For them to be our future, we've got to take care of them today. Thank you for joining me. Ask and look for a blueprint online on our website. Get a copy of it if you can. And be part of this exciting change that all of us have hope for our country. God bless you, and God bless this beautiful country of Guyana.